Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and we have a ton to get to this morning, so let's get right to it. Oh, by the way, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be our guest coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. If you have any questions for Phil, please pass them along at that number on the bottom of the screen. I want to start with a viewer comment that I missed yesterday. I'm sorry, I didn't miss it. Came in last night. And this is why I say we have the best viewers of the program. Hello, Frank. Is there a chance Kamala could be thinking of a run for New York governor? Word has it she's moving into a New York apartment. Yes, I saw that story. I didn't bring it up. We ran out of time. But the first gentleman, Doug Emhoff, was touring a luxury apartment in New York City. Could she have her eye on New York governor? That is a great question and one I personally had not thought of when I saw that story about them house shopping or apartment shopping or whatever you'd call it in New York City. Interesting. That's a way to kind of pique our interest on this Friday morning. Also, because we talk so often about how there's so many major outlets that must watch Frankly Speaking. The other day we had a viewer comment. I think it was yesterday's program. Pardon me. Got a frog in my throat. On yesterday's program, someone had commented that the only reason that Joe Biden hates the oligarchs now is because they were not pushing, and I'm paraphrasing, not pushing the radical left's agenda. And now they're a threat to democracy. I thought that was a great point. And this morning I read from Robbie Sove, arrogant Biden could care less about oligarchs. He's mad tech giants aren't censoring for Democrats anymore. I'm telling you, there's some important people that watch this show, folks, so your comments are not falling on deaf ears. Zuckerberg now says that he regrets this submission, this censorship. Some conservatives are understandably skeptical of his sudden conversion, as I am. I've mentioned on the program. Now, Elon Musk campaigned with Trump, was a part of the campaign in numerous avenues and rallies, fundraising, where Zuckerberg is kind of late to the party, meaning, let's saddle up to the winner. Let's change our tune now that there's clearly, with the landslide in November, there's clearly a new mindset in this country. Ironically, this makes Biden's Democrat Party the ultimate oligarch, says Sove, one in which the politically powerful sought the ability to suppress dissent. That the leaders of the tech sector now reject this arrangement and reject it utterly is a good sign for the future of free speech in the U.S. So to all the viewers that send in such great comments. By the way, the oligarchy that Biden decried in his farewell speech, his farewell address to the nation, that oligarchy gained $1.5 trillion, $1.5 trillion under his watch in his term. The 100 wealthiest Americans got more than $1.5 trillion richer over the last 4 years, with tech tycoons, including Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, and Mark Zuckerberg leading the way. Just something I thought was interesting. Okay, breaking news coming in late yesterday, early this morning, depending on how you want to look at it. We know that Biden has made some, really, I think you could say disastrous decisions on his way out the door. These last few days, as Monday, yes, is the inauguration. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program. But President Joe Biden has granted clemency, I know you get nervous as soon as you hear this, for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders, placing a focus on sentencing disparities for crack cocaine-related crimes, which wasn't he a part of that bill that was so tough on cocaine back in the 80s? Could be. Yeah, The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986. There it is. Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. That was a different one. I apologize. But anyway, today, this is the quote. Today, I'm commuting the sentences of nearly 2,500 people convicted of nonviolent drug offenses who are serving disproportionately long sentences compared to the sentences they would receive today under current law, policy, and practice. Today's clemency action provides relief for individuals who receive lengthy sentences based on discredited distinctions between crack and powdered cocaine, as well as outdated sentencing enhancements for drug crimes. So there you are. On his way out the door, Biden has commuted the sentences for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders convicted on crack cocaine charges. Okay, also breaking, Israel and Hamas negotiators officially inked the ceasefire deal. We know yesterday it was on shaky grounds. Well, this is ahead of the cabinet vote to approve the agreement, according to Netanyahu's office. This was just hours after several setbacks threatened to upend the agreement. The proposed terms, which include the release of hostages and at least a temporary pause in fighting in Gaza, were agreed to by the Israeli and Hamas negotiating teams, according to the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office. They said that the Security Cabinet would meet later on Friday to vote on the long-awaited deal. The full cabinet must then approve the agreement, though they aren't expected to convene until Saturday night, according to, again, Netanyahu's spokesperson. The Saturday vote would delay the start of the ceasefire till Monday, a day later than originally expected. The expected 42-day peace deal had hit a few snags Thursday over government infighting and Hamas's alleged, quote, last-minute blackmail attempt, leading Netanyahu to delay the cabinet vote. The holdup reportedly involved demands from Hamas that Israel not get veto rights over which prisoners were released. So there is your update. Now, yesterday, Biden, in a final sit-down interview, which has been described as rambling, dismissed claims that Benjamin Netanyahu slow-walked the ceasefire to help Trump. It is ironic that if that means the ceasefire deal goes into effect on Monday, that would be Inauguration Day. Biden, of course, very keen on taking credit over all of this, very focused on that. We had it yesterday when he was asked if Trump deserves the credit for this deal. He said, "Is that a joke?" So where did President Biden sit down for his final TV interview? None other than MSNBC. And MSNBC host Lawrence O'Donnell presented him with a ceasefire theory. Quote, I'm not going to quote Lawrence O'Donnell here, but that it was slow-walked to benefit Trump. The outgoing president said, "No, I don't think it was to help our campaign versus Trump. I don't think that was his calculus." Well, that's not what Lawrence asked. It was the other way around. Was it used to help Trump? Biden, who has refused to give Trump credit for sealing the deal, acknowledged, though, that the president-elect's national security people were brought in before the agreement was struck. During the rare interview, O'Donnell also asked Biden to reflect on some of his, quote, accomplishments and missteps. Biden suggested that not signing his name on the COVID relief checks, as Trump famously did, may have been politically costly. The mistake we made was, I made, was not getting our allies to acknowledge that the Democrats did this. I'm not a very good huckster, but acknowledge that Trump putting his name on the stimulus check wasn't a stupid thing for him to do. I almost spent too much time on the policy and not enough time on the politics. That's what he said. But let's face it. The reason he didn't spend more time on the politics is because he was shielded from the public. His handlers, Dr. Jill and others in the White House, knew from day one, according to the Wall Street Journal, that he was in mental decline. So they did not want to have him out in the public. It was very much like his campaign back in 2020, where the basement campaign. They kept that same campaign going throughout his 4 years. That's why this article even saying that it's a rare interview with Biden. Keep in mind, and this is when we really started focusing, well, we talked about it the whole time, really, but focused on it, knowing that it was getting worse and worse when we talk about the mental decline, when his team refused the interview before the Super Bowl, which is typically a softball interview that is seen by a lot of people. That's when extra concern rose about the president's health. So for him to say he spent too much time on the policy, not enough time on the politics, I would assume that neither were really focused on laser-like. But with the politics aspect, of course, that was a calculated effort to keep him out of the public eye. Biden, who has engaged in fewer press conferences and media interviews than any president in modern history, was not asked about the controversial decision to pardon his disgraced son, Hunter. Why would he? This is on Lawrence O'Donnell. He did the last sit-down interview for a reason with Lawrence O'Donnell. Let's face it, he's not going to get the tough questions about Hunter, about the economy. But Biden did invoke Hunter's name when asked about his late son, what his late son, Beau, will be telling him as he prepares to leave office. Beau and Hunter have always had faith in my instincts. Then he went on a tangent about his beginning in politics and his belief that all politics is personal. And then even acknowledging his word salad by saying, I'm getting way over my skis here. He also blamed red states for really screwing up. Red states, of course, meaning conservative states. Again, talking with MSNBC and Lawrence O'Donnell. The president dismissed criticism of how he handled inflation by claiming the alternative was to lose jobs. But guess what? That's another thing he says a lot, isn't it? But guess what? I was absolutely convinced, give the American people half a shot, they'll step up and get the job done if you give them the opportunity. Look what they did. They stepped up in every major endeavor. I never believed we wouldn't have a soft landing. We had a soft landing. Inflation is down almost to 2%, a lot going on. Now, the Labor Department said on Wednesday that inflation rose by 2.9% in December, up from 2.7% in November, and the highest rate since July of 2024. Then he went on to say, and look, the other thing, Lawrence, I got a lot of criticism, understandably. We've invested more in red states than blue states for two reasons. One, red states really screwed up in terms of the way they handled their economy and the way they handled manufacturing, the way they handled access to supply chains. This is in reference to COVID, by the way. But reports have found that Republican-led states like Florida and Texas recovered far more quickly than blue states after the pandemic. A new Fox News survey on Thursday showed almost twice as many people think that the Biden administration had made the economy worse rather than better, 52 to 28%. Plus, nearly all voters, 89%, say they are either extremely or very concerned about inflation. 89%. You can't get 89% of the American people to agree on most anything. 70% of voters say the economy is in bad shape, with 6 out of 10 Democrats agreeing that the economy was only fair or in poor condition. Okay. Well, we covered a lot there to start the program. I will say, and that was just kind of a tangent from the ceasefire deal, Douglas Murray does have a very good point on this, saying a real ceasefire deal must ensure the destruction of Hamas. And that's something why there's been some criticism, and you may have saw yesterday during Anthony Blinken's final press conference, the chaos erupted, where a reporter started screaming, "You should be in The Hague," yelling about the genocide in Gaza. Criminal. Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague? Yelled, what's his name here? Sam Husseini from Gray Zone News. But Douglas Murray says that a real ceasefire deal must ensure the destruction of Hamas. Your thoughts on that? If this deal is going to hold, it will need all of America's might to lean on the powers in the region which backed Hamas and undermined Israel. Trump's policy of peace through strength will stand or fall on that junction. We must hope that it holds. So there we are. There's a couple breaking stories. One breaking story that I'm not overly sure that you care about, but Biden has decided not to enforce the looming TikTok ban. Your thoughts? Are you a big TikTok user? This leaves the Chinese app's fate up to Trump as he returns to the White House. Now, Trump has indicated that he wants to figure out something with TikTok. Trump, who has repeatedly expressed a desire to save TikTok, is reportedly considering executive action that would delay the implementation of the sell or ban law of the ban for up to 90 days. Okay. A lot of breaking news stories. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Trump administration. We're going to talk about the upcoming inauguration, which is on Monday. We look forward to talking about it on Tuesday. Are you going to the inauguration? I think I know a few people that are going. But if you're going, I'd love to see pictures. I'd love to hear your stories. But we have to take a short break because I'm running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
AI is The next big thing, a tool of unlimited possibilities.
It's going to change everything.
Actually, at William Mattar, we've been using AI for over 35 years.
What?
AI, attorney intelligence. It's how we use our legal minds to recover millions of dollars for our clients in motor vehicle cases. Hurt in a car? Call William Mattar and put our attorney intelligence to work for you. 444-4444.
Welcome Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world with over 50 teas and a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Come in and try our duck baki or eggs benedict. They are full of flavors your taste buds will thank you for.
There's been another deadly shooting at a local elementary school. According to authorities, the suspect acquired the gun from a family member's home before using it to take the lives of innocent children and teachers.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something that you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I just wanted to mention quickly a story, a sad story from yesterday. The legendary Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, has passed away at the age of 90. Great. If you ever watch those old reruns of the Carson show, he was on Carson more than 100 times. Hilarious. How about this quote? When it was mentioned that he hit just 200 in 297 major league games and once led the league in passed balls as a catcher, his response, and I didn't even play in all the games. So Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, passing away at the age of 90. All right. Let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Given Biden's unscrupulous ties that him and his family have with China, it is not surprising that he is pro-TikTok. Yeah, that's going to be a major concern. It is a national security. Actually, I saw yesterday somewhere, I think it was on Drudge Report, video of employees at TikTok having to make that oath for communist China. And that's going to be interesting because Trump has wanted to save TikTok. I'm not sure. I believe he used it during his campaign. But ironically, Biden did too. But anyway, a comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. I see that you don't have a Frankly Speaking Facebook page. Good choice. As I follow a few politicians like Elise Stefanik, I see that there are agitators waiting to pounce on any post that is made. They instantly call them racists or anything else that is hateful. It's almost like they are being paid to agitate, because I can't understand why anyone would choose to express their hate 24/7. Keep making 6 to 8 great. Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that about 6 to 8. We do our best here, but it's all because of the viewers and all because of the comments like this. Yeah, the people, they are fulfilled or full, either way, of hate 24/7. It's amazing to me how, with Facebook or any kind of social media, how quickly it can go political, even when not necessary, if it's ever necessary. But you could say something as simple as, be careful, it's so snowy on the road. Why be careful if Trump's going to destroy our, that kind of thing. You're right. There are people, not just the bots, but actual people, 24/7. It does not matter what is posted by certain politicians. It will be instantly filled with hate, threats. Yeah, social media, whatever you think, it is definitely, in my opinion, done more harm than good. For at least going back to what we talk about on this program so much, community. You know, we talked about, and we always do on this program, that's why we have so many great local guests on, and encourage everybody watching to get involved, whether they want to take out petitions or if they want to run themselves. And if you are going to run yourself, you want to run for some elected office, don't forget petitions are coming up at the end of February. So you'll need to start getting active and start doing the research. But we go back to community, it's why we're so divided in many ways. The 24/7 news cycle as well as social media. I couldn't agree more. It's amazing that people are so full of hate 24/7. That's no way to live, in my opinion. Did you see that Trump has named ambassadors to what he calls troubled Hollywood? President-elect Donald Trump tapped 3 longtime supporters, actors Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and Jon Voight, as special ambassadors to Hollywood, ostensibly to help boost business in troubled Tinseltown. Quote, they'll be special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California. They will serve as special envoys to me for the purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years to foreign countries, back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. By the way, longtime supporters, I didn't realize about Stallone being a longtime supporter until relatively recently. Meaning that it was some speech he gave at a rally, or maybe it was even after Trump was elected. But that's great. Mel Gibson, I assumed because of some of the things he said on political shows that he was a Trump supporter. Jon Voight's been a strong Trump supporter from the beginning. Jon Voight is an example, and this isn't my thought. I want to say it was Dennis Miller, but don't quote me on that, when he had a radio program, who said that if Jon Voight wasn't a Republican, if he didn't support Republican candidates, he would be receiving so many Lifetime Achievement Awards at this point in his career. But instead, Hollywood's essentially shunned him, tried to call him crazy. Why is he crazy? Because he has the audacity, like a very good chunk of this country, to support conservative values, support Donald Trump. Now, the actual duties of what this job entails, not quite clear yet, but Trump said the trio would be his eyes and ears in the movie industry, and, quote, I will get done what they suggest. It will again be, like the United States of America itself, the golden age of Hollywood. Stallone, Gibson, and Voight are outspoken Trump fans, unlike the majority of Hollywood celebrities who overwhelmingly supported Harris. We saw where that got them. Again, I know I've said this on the program before. I was shocked. The value that Harris put on celebrity endorsements, in some instances even having to pay for them, we've learned. I was surprised by that because it cost Hillary Clinton in many ways. Because, again, I don't want to be lectured. That's not what these celebrities are doing. They're trying to make Hollywood better. I don't want to be lectured by Hollywood celebrities, musicians, about who's going to be best for me when they're, flying their private jets and then lecturing us about global warming, or, like Bruce Springsteen charges hundreds of dollars for a general admission ticket and then lectures us about the 1%. So this is one of the many interesting ideas coming from President-elect Donald Trump. Just like Doge, right? In November, Stallone called Trump the second George Washington. I forgot about that. The second George Washington, while introducing him at the America First Policy Institute Gala. We are in the presence of a real mythical character, Stallone said at the time. Nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off, so I'm in awe. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world, because without him, you could imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We've got the second George Washington. Congratulations. Gibson also backed Trump in the 2024 election while bashing Harris as unintelligent. Quote, I know what it'll be like if we let her in. That ain't good. A miserable track record, an appalling track record, no policies to speak of, and she's got the IQ of a fence post. Meanwhile, Midnight Cowboy alum Voight, 86, once called Trump the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln. Now, it's unclear if the trio of right-leaning celebrities will attend Trump's inauguration, which we are going to talk about next. And I see we got a lot of comments. Keep those waves coming in. By the way, if you are just joining us this morning, breaking news from overnight, Biden has commuted the sentences for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders convicted on crack cocaine-related charges. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
When you think boots, think Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel-toe boots, Met-Guard boots, soft-toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselson's at Meyer Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Most doctors recommend daily walks because of the many health benefits associated with walking. But how do you get healthy circulation boosting activity without leaving your chair? With Legzercise Pro, the natural circulation booster that uses continuous automatic leg movement to soothe pain and promote healthy circulation the natural drug-free way. Soothe pain and calm restless legs. Reduce swelling in your legs, ankles, and feet and stimulate healthy circulation. Stay active with Legzercise Pro.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. A little snow falling this morning as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A couple of comments from viewers. I wonder if the Obamas will stay in Washington, D.C. Maybe they will move to New York so Michelle can run against Kamala. Now we're really getting into some WWE stuff. If you're just joining us, we had a comment that people received last night, or that I received last night. Sorry, I was waving. 2 solid waves right there on the street. On the street waves. I received a comment last night from a viewer saying that, Kamala is looking to move to New York. Could she be thinking about running for governor? That's very interesting to me. Because they are, it was reported that First Gentleman Doug Emhoff, use the term gentleman loosely, he was touring luxurious apartments in New York City. So could she be thinking of a gubernatorial run? We have not heard anything about that, but boy, it would be ripe for the taking. That's why Richie Torres sees an opportunity. He's a Democrat. Sees an opportunity, and he's trying to be Mr. Public Safety, even though in the past he talked about defunding the police. But, never mind what happened in the past, just like Harris. Harris could do the same thing. I don't know. I don't know why that piqued my interest so much. I thought that was a really great comment because there was talks of her running for governor of California because that's where she's from. So there is a possibility there, too, because Gavin Newsom is pretty bloodied up right now. Obviously, we've talked about it all week. That Gavin Newsom is fighting for his political life. And as the residents there realize, he's worried more about his political career than the people on the ground that have suffered from these fires. And I think that's crystal clear from his interviews. So will he come away from this as even governor as recall efforts are starting, let alone a front runner in the presidential race? Okay, comment from a different viewer. Have you ever noticed how beady-eyed Biden is? Those eyes of his convey a sense of him being untrustworthy to me. Well, I would say 4 years. would also make me think he was maybe a little untrustworthy. Ken. I can't say that, Ken. Ken sent in a comment. Breaking news story. Biden commutes sentence for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders convicted on crack cocaine-related charges. Ken has responded. They must have been Hunter's best friends. Hunter, who has a history of drug use. That's why some speculated that Biden did such a blanket pardon that Hunter has 10 years where crimes known and unknown completely wiped away. So Ken, I don't know. I don't think they know each other. 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders convicted on crack cocaine charges had their sentences commuted yesterday by President Biden. Okay, Inauguration Day is Monday. They're saying it will be bitterly cold if you're planning to attend. Temperatures will be the lowest since 1985, which is kind of interesting because 1985 was the swearing in for the second inauguration of President Ronald Reagan. So I like those comparisons there. The weather forecast calls for a chance of snow on Sunday, followed by gusty winds and high temperatures only around 20 degrees. Are you planning to attend? I would love to hear from you if you are, because, well, it's going to be a historic day, and we'd love to see some pictures or hear from you after the fact. In the old radio days, I would take calls, but the hours of 6 to 8 don't really work. You're more or less traveling at that point. So we talked about the backlash against Carrie Underwood for performing at the inauguration. By backlash, I mean Joy Behar called her un-American, essentially, saying that, I don't know how you can say you love your country and then normalize, she used every cliche, normalize a convicted felon getting sworn in. So you remember when the most outlandish, outrageous thing you could say is that, I think it was Rush Limbaugh who said something like that, he hopes Obama fails. And that was nonstop. They talked about that nonstop. Worst thing that could ever be said. Now look at what is so nonchalantly thrown around, that if you support the president of the United States, the incoming president of the United States, that you don't love your country. Carrie Underwood doesn't love her country. Well, the Hollywood Reporter is now saying that there's backlash for those performing at Trump's inauguration. We heard the Village People, even, yes, the Village People are going to be there, saying, really apologizing in a way to their fans, saying that, hey, we didn't support him, but we want to unify the country. Let's see. Carrie Underwood confirmed earlier this week to sing America the Beautiful in a move that surprised some fans. She will have plenty of company from the country music world when she arrives in Washington. Billy Ray Cyrus, Jason Aldean, Lee Greenwood, Parker McCullum, and Rascal Flatts are booked to hit the stage either at one of 3 official inaugural balls or the Make America Great Again victory rally. Now, there are, as a side note, a number of unofficial balls and inauguration events in and around D.C. this weekend. Gavin DeGraw, whose work has straddled pop, rock, and country, and who is perhaps best known for his hits off his album Chariot, like the One Tree Hill theme song, I Don't Want to Be, will perform at the Starlight Ball. The Monday event will also feature remarks by President Trump. News of DeGraw's participation was met by criticism from a portion of his fan base, so much that his name was a trending topic on X. The Village People addressed their fans directly to reveal they would participate in the inauguration. The band, whose classic hit YMCA has become a staple of the Trump campaign, that's become part of his signature now dance moves. We know this won't make, this is the Village People. We know this won't make some of you happy to hear. However, we believe the music is to be performed without regard to politics. Other names that are perhaps less surprising: Kid Rock, of course, Lee Greenwood. Lee Greenwood's a familiar face at nearly all his rallies. The 60th inauguration will herald President Trump's triumphant return to the White House and the start of the great American comeback, said in a joint statement. Now, here's the thing. So the whole piece by the Hollywood Reporter says backlash. They give no real instances of backlash, just knowing that some people went on Twitter to complain. But to that viewer's point earlier in the program, there are going to be politicians and bands and performers, whoever, that no matter what they post are going to receive hate. So I don't think you've got to give credit to these people, because there is such a hatred of Trump by many that, yes, it will cost them some fans. But at the end of the day, like, look at Carrie Underwood. What an amazing opportunity to perform in an inauguration, a historic moment. And she said that in her statement. So sometimes, you wouldn't see this. You finally kind of did a little bit this year about the backlash received when a performer performs for a Democrat. Now, I say there was some backlash because Beyonce, the media sold it as she was going to perform at that rally. So a lot of people attended that wouldn't normally attend a political rally to see that performance, and then she didn't perform. So there's backlash there. But really, there was actual backlash against Harris and some of these celebrities who went all in on the Harris campaign. But of course, it's a really cheap article with no real substance, just trying to almost put that threat out there, just like the threat that was made by, was it Vanity, maybe? Saying, well, I know you endorsed Biden and Harris in the past, Taylor Swift, but that is all for nothing if you don't endorse Harris now. Remember that threat? And then what was it, 2 days later, Taylor Swift endorsed? If you want to see a quick rundown, Saturday, the president's reception and fireworks will take place at Trump National Golf Club in Virginia. And there'll be a cabinet reception and vice president's dinner. Then on Sunday, Arlington National Cemetery ceremony of the wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Then there will be the Make America Great Again victory rally. That's where President Trump will deliver remarks. Performers include Kid Rock, The Village People, Billy Ray Cyrus, Liberty University's Praise Choir, and Lee Greenwood. Then there'll be a candlelight dinner where President Trump will also deliver remarks. On Monday, actual inaugural day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, there'll be a St. John's Church service, then tea service at the White House, then the swearing-in ceremony. Performers include Carrie Underwood, who will sing America the Beautiful, American tenor Christopher Macchio, who will perform the national anthem, and Grammy winner Lee Greenwood, who will sing God Bless the USA. All living presidents are expected to be in attendance, and we're going to talk about attendance here in just a moment, including Joe Biden, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. Farewell to the former president and vice president. That will be, of course, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in attendance. Then the U.S. Capitol departure ceremony, the president's signing room ceremony, then a JCCIC congressional luncheon, the president's review of the troops, the presidential parade, Oval Office signing ceremony, Commander-in-Chief ball. That's the Commander-in-Chief ball, and you'll be able to watch some of these throughout the day on Monday. That'll be Rascal Flatts and Parker McCollum performing. Liberty inaugural ball. These are the three official balls. President Trump to deliver remarks, and then it'll have Jason Aldean, The Village People, and a quote surprise musical guest. Oh, interesting. Oh, they don't mention Kid. Probably going to be Kid Rock. And then the Starlight Ball. President Trump to deliver remarks. Gavin DeGraw is booked to perform, and then Tuesday, the National Prayer Service. There's a quick rundown. Are you planning to attend? I'm sure there are some out there. I would love to see pictures. Now, how am I doing on time? All right, we got a little time. Chief Justice Roberts is going to swear in Donald Trump, while Brett Kavanaugh is going to give the oath of office to J.D. Vance. Brett Kavanaugh will swear in J.D. Vance. The U.S. Senate notes the vice president have selected various individuals to administer the oath since World War II, but most have opted for justices in recent decades. The Cincinnati Enquirer was the first outlet to report that Vance would take the oath from Brett Kavanaugh. Justice Sonia Sotomayor swore in Vice President Kamala Harris. Justice Clarence Thomas swore in Mike Pence. And former Justice John Paul Stevens administered the oath to then Vice President-elect Joe Biden. Vance will be sworn in just before noon when Trump takes his oath and assumes the role of president once again. I think that was an interesting choice. Brett Kavanaugh to swear in J.D. Vance. Excited to see what J.D. Vance accomplishes and his role in the White House. Now, some of those that will not be attending. Nancy Pelosi will not be attending Trump's inauguration. Also, we learn that Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama are not expected to attend the post-swearing-in luncheon at the U.S. Capitol. A little bit of pettiness there. Now, if you recall, though, last time, what an awkward scenario, in a positive way. There's not too many people in the world that I know that could do what Donald Trump did, which was give a speech essentially bad-mouthing everybody sitting directly behind him. All the former presidents, politicians. I still think back at that and think, wow, that must have been uncomfortable for the Clintons and the Bush family and et cetera. And Barack Obama, of course. Pelosi, who is recovering from hip replacement surgery, had attended the 45th president inauguration in 2017. Her spokesperson confirmed the decision, reported by ABC News, but did not provide an explanation. Pelosi joins a handful of House Democrats, including Bronx and Queens Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who will give the January 20 festivities a miss. I'm not really surprised by that. We learned yesterday that Michelle Obama is foregoing the swearing in as well, raising some concerns by many about why she's missed the Carter funeral and now the inauguration. Well, the Carter funeral, that one was more of a surprise. This one doesn't surprise me all that much. But, you know, there's talking about that buddy-buddy relationship between Obama and Trump. Though Pelosi has been forced to rely on a walker while recovering from hip surgery following a fall at the Grand Ducal Palace in Luxembourg last month, she has been present for key ceremony events since January 6th certification of the election. It'll be interesting to see what else we learn about attendees and non-attendees. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. But it is interesting. Clinton, Bush, and Obama will be present for the swearing in, but will not stay for the lunch. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will also reportedly forego the midday meal as well. The luncheon dates back to 1897's inauguration of President William McKinley and is hosted by the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies. I mean, you kind of expect it from Clinton and Obama maybe, but George W. Bush, interesting, the direction he's went. If you are just joining us, breaking news from overnight, Biden has commuted sentences for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders convicted on crack cocaine-related charges. All right, we've got to take a short break. Don't forget, it is Fridays with Phil. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be our guest in the 7 o'clock hour. But right now, we need to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Today's top story, increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.
Sheldon and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Brought to you by Boss Automation. Sorry, I'm trying to respond to a text. Brought to you by Boss Automation in Horses. We're just having too much fun this morning. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. As we have been commenting all morning long, that Biden, breaking last night, commuted the sentences for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders convicted on crack cocaine-related charges. Let's go to some viewer comments. Oh, and if you are just joining us, a comment from a viewer, which actually came in later yesterday, which was, do you think Harris is moving to New York, or at least shopping around for an apartment in New York City because she's thinking about running for governor? It just piqued my interest this morning. So many great comments. Sorry, I just get so distracted when they keep coming in. My opinion is that if Harris were to become governor of New York, which I hope would be only a wild-eyed fantasy of shallow thinkers, the analogy would be that New York has jumped from the pot into the fire. Yeah, I mean, that, you know, you always say that, be careful what you wish for, somebody different than Hochul. We are smart about this. We want someone that is going to be better than Hochul, and I don't even think this would be a push. I think it would be worse, because look at what is happening in the policies in California. Look at Gavin Newsom. It'd be very similar. Comment from a different viewer. Kamala probably wants to move to New York because the policies are just as bad as California, except our fire hydrants work. Great point. Then finishing up, she likes nice lawns where she can be unburdened by brush fires. I like sneaking in an unburdened there. Yes, that's a good point. Next up. The surprise singer, which is in reference to a surprise singer at one of the inaugural balls, will probably be Lee Greenwood. That wouldn't be much of a surprise. Lee Greenwood is everywhere. I'm surprised he didn't run as vice president for Trump. Kid Rock's name wasn't thrown in any of those, so maybe that's Kid Rock, but that's not really a surprise either. But you're right. Maybe Lee Greenwood, Kid Rock, something like that. Next up, those not going to the luncheon, meaning Clinton, Bush, Obama, must not like Hochul's free lunch program. Yes, the free lunch program making the rounds again. Trump's team is having a good laugh, according to reports, over Michelle Obama's deliberate decision to skip the inauguration. MAGA sources, I like that, could not care less that Michelle Obama is snubbing Trump's inauguration, according to sources relaying the message to page 6 of the New York Post. Quote, they're having a good laugh. They didn't expect her to come anyway. A Democratic source tried to play down the diss, noting Donald Trump and Melania didn't go to Joe Biden's inauguration and nobody cared. No one said anything. I don't know if no one said anything. That's ignoring the media's constant coverage of decisions like that. Barack and Michelle Obama's office announced this week that Michelle will skip the 60th inaugural ceremonies. Well, she's on an extended vacation in Hawaii. Once Barack retired, isn't pretty much all of life at that point an extended vacation unless you want to work? Well, I guess it's reported that she would have apparently been seated next to Trump, so that could be the big issue. One Republican source speculated it's obvious that this was her way of protesting Trump. She hates him. Sure. But then you see her husband getting along famously with Trump, and as Trump says, everybody likes me. Oh, by the way, yesterday, that's interesting. Frank, comment from a viewer. Ken says, I woke up last night with a nightmare that mirrored what your viewer said about Kamala moving to New York. This is Ken again. Her running for governor of or senator from New York. It's obvious that the Dems are not going to throw her away. Why else would they get her the most lucrative book deal in VP history, possibly $20 million? Yes, she does. She's a person of color, woman of color, name recognition, extremely progressive, loyal to the Democrats, willing to do or say anything that her Dem handlers tell her. Obama is probably not going to have another puppet in Washington, but he and Hillary would be happy to have a big voice in Washington through New York. Great point, Ken, and great point to the viewer who originally brought it up, well, after yesterday's program that I read on this morning's program. I could see her running for California just because she's known for California, but then again, you can't say anything's off the table. Yeah, she's not going by the wayside, that's for sure. She, like Ken says, the name recognition. Now you might say, well, it didn't help her in the presidential. They spent over $1.5 billion, closer to $2. You've heard different reports, $2 billion. So she has name recognition, whether someone wants to admit it or not. She is extremely progressive. She will say and do anything. I mean, think about how she ran. Like all of a sudden she's Miss Pro Fracking. She'll say and do anything to get elected. So they see a weakness in Hochul. And remember, Pelosi wasn't happy and called Hochul out the last go around when New York helped Republicans secure the House. So I don't think, yes, they let her speak at the DNC, but not at definitely not primetime address, and it wasn't even a good speech. She fumbled right out of the beginning. So I could see, if you just want to look at state politics, you could see a lot of people working behind the scenes to say, okay, we don't want to be Richie Torres. He just doesn't have the name. Why don't we put in a Kamala Harris? Because we don't want Hochul. Hochul thinks she's done good for the Democrats, and that's what makes her so bad. Because she hasn't. She's been a disaster for Democrats in the state. Yes, she's been able to fundraise, but that's just because she has a D next to her name. Kamala would be able to fundraise perhaps more in the state. So very good point from everyone. And what a fun question to pose this morning. Well, not if it comes true, but a fun question to pose this morning that's got us all thinking. Okay, yesterday, do I have time? Yeah, we'll talk about, I just want to quickly, because you may not have seen this because it wasn't quite as contentious, but Lee Zeldin, speaking of Governor Hochul, Lee Zeldin, who nearly beat Governor Hochul in that gubernatorial race, pledges more common sense at the EPA during his Senate hearing. He emphasized bipartisanship, but stopped short of taking firm stances on controversial pollution topics during the U.S. Senate confirmation hearing Thursday as he seeks to be appointed Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. A former U.S. Army military intelligence officer, Zeldin, we know all about this. We don't have to go through his time in the state Senate and in Congress. He said he wants to focus on building more collaboration within the agency, which serves as the country's top environmental regulatory body. But many federal environmental regulations could be vulnerable under the administration of Trump. Yeah, that's why I know. This is the Albany Times Union, so take it with a grain of salt. He said, quote, "We must protect our precious environment without suffocating the economy. A big part of this will require building a private sector collaboration to promote common sense, smart regulation that will allow American innovation to continue to lead the world." So there you go. Lee Zeldin's confirmation hearing was yesterday. You may have missed it, but if you saw it, I'd love to hear from you. When we come back, oh, man, we have so much to talk about. And Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is going to be joining us in the next hour. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
At John G. Ullman & Associates, our clients come first. As a fiduciary, we build personalized plans rooted in our shared ethics and values.
And you've been doing this for 45 years?
Yes, our in-house team creates custom plans built for you and your family.
We like the idea of a relationship that lasts.
That's what we're all about, helping you and your family build and protect wealth for generations. John G. Ullman & Associates, here for everything your money touches.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is History Making. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Not much of a choice there with Hochul or Harris. If that does not represent Dumb and Dumber, I do not know what does. Well, that question from that viewer got a lot of response this morning. Okay, Joe Concha from Fox News put together the 5 biggest losers from Team Trump's confirmation hearings. If you're just the average political observer watching the show at home, has likely been an annoying, infuriating, and sometimes comical experience. The questioning of Pete Hegseth, Trump's pick for defense secretary, and Pam Bondi, his nominee for attorney general, has greatly diminished what was once a relatively dignified Senate chamber. So who were the biggest losers of the week? Number 5, Senator Richard Blumenthal. How this guy even shows his face at a confirmation hearing is truly something to behold. Blumenthal, you may recall, lied repeatedly about serving in Vietnam despite never setting foot outside U.S. soil at the time. The Connecticut Democrat even went so far as to say he and other soldiers suffered physical abuse upon returning to the U.S. Blumenthal then piously said, "I do not believe that you can tell this committee or the people of America that you are qualified to lead them. I would support you as a spokesperson for the Pentagon. Now, keep in mind, so as Blumenthal lied about his service in Vietnam, Hegseth, an actual veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan on multiple tours and earned 2 Bronze Stars and a Combat Infantry badge. But Blumenthal with no self-awareness. But I think at this point, when you lie about something that serious, you either have to erase it from your mind or almost kind of start to believe it, or whatever the case may be. He wasn't ashamed of it. He wasn't ashamed about his lies, so that's how he can do that, get on his high horse and somehow lecture Pete Hegseth. Despite lying about his military service and the ultimate textbook example of stolen valor, Democrats put Blumenthal on the Armed Services Committee. What's next? Naming him to the Veterans Affairs Committee? 4, Senator Elizabeth Warren. These are the biggest losers from the hearings this week. Speaking of those who lied about their past, faux Native American lawmaker from Massachusetts really stepped in it on Tuesday when questioning Hegseth, saying, "You are quite sure every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years, but you're not willing to make that same pledge?" she yelled at Pete Hegseth. Hegseth responded, "I'm not a general, Senator," getting the chamber to laugh. On Tuesday night, Warren joined Caitlin Collins on CNN, who reportedly, in the middle of the interview that Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst has committed to supporting Hegseth, that news all but clinched the feeling that Hegseth will be confirmed. Warren noticeably grimaced upon hearing that. Then, number 3, Senator Adam Schiff. And speaking yet again of prolific liars, look no further than newly elected California Democrat senator who was censored at the House for lying over several years that he had direct evidence that then President Trump had colluded with the Kremlin. That evidence, of course, is yet to be produced. During his interrogation of likely incoming Attorney General Pam Bondi, Schiff played the role of white knight for the newly minted Democrat darling Liz Cheney. Quote, "I'm asking you sitting here today whether you are aware of a factual predicate to investigate Liz Cheney." That's when Bondi responded, "Senator, no one has asked me to investigate Liz Cheney. That is a hypothetical." Schiff said, "The president has called out for it publicly. You are aware of that, aren't you?" So condescending. "No one has asked me to investigate Liz," Bondi insisted. "You know, what we should be worried about, the crime rate in California right now is through the roof. Your robberies are 87% higher than the national average. That's what I want to be focused on, Senator, if I'm confirmed as Attorney General." She did such a good job. Number 2, Mazie Hirono. If anyone encapsulates how ridiculous some of the question was during these hearings, look no further than the pride of the Pacific, Hawaii Democrat speaker, or the Hawaii Democrat, Mazie Hirono. I'm not going to go through the exact quotes. There was so many embarrassing quotes. Even some Democrats now really cringing, if you will, at her. And number 1, the biggest loser, according to Joe Concha, of the Senate confirmation hearing, Senator Tim Kaine. He looked like he just rolled out of bed during the hearings, number 1. That was bad. Exhibit A, Kaine at one point, during his questioning of Hegseth, tried to make the argument that since the nominee had been twice divorced, he therefore couldn't be counted on to uphold his oath as defense secretary when he couldn't be counted on to uphold his oath of marriage. Now think of that from the Democrat Party. That's how there is no self-awareness. Yep, the same Tim Kaine who ran with Hillary Clinton's as Hillary Clinton's running mate and who didn't utter one peep about Bill Clinton's multiple marital transgressions. The party did itself overall no favors this week. Democrats looked and sounded like members of a losing party, married to a losing brand, while embracing cheesy performance art to play to the type of people who still watch MSNBC and CNN. Trump will get his cabinet confirmed, and in the process, the blue team will continue to go down a road few Americans have an appetite for, a road paved in division and demagoguery. All right, let's take a short break. Wrap up, and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be joining us soon, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Isn't this important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with a Hesselson's hot tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Hey, this is hour number 2. Boy, we're having so much fun, I'm losing track of time. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thanks for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A couple comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Climate Friday fact. Our atmosphere is made up of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% represents all the other gases, of which carbon is 0.043%. Humans are responsible for 1% of the carbon. That means humans are responsible for 0.00043% of all carbon that is causing the greenhouse effect, allegedly. Let that sink in. Thank you very much. Another comment from a different viewer. Why doesn't Ken run for governor? We'd be better off. There you go, Ken. You can feel free to make your announcement anytime on the program. Did you see that in kind of a preemptive awareness that the FBI closed its DEI offices in December? The FBI has closed its DEI office, Fox News can confirm. In recent weeks, the FBI took steps to close the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, effective by December 2024. The agency didn't specify why it closed the office, although many Republicans have been critical of it prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion, saying that had overshadowed national security. It's kind of interesting. Now, Trump is now demanding, as that news broke, that the FBI's corrupt, shuttered DEI office, quote, retain all records, as critics call for the national security focus. The FBI quietly closed the DEI office a month after Trump's 2024 election victory, and the president-elect is demanding that the corrupt division preserve and retain its records. Quote, in recent weeks, the FBI took steps to close the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, effective by December 2024. I thought that was Trump's quote, but it was not. That was a quote that I just previously read. We demand, this is Trump, we demand that the FBI preserve and retain all records, documents, and information on the now closing DEI office. Never should have been opened, and if it was, should have been closed long ago. A couple quick headlines as we get ready for Assemblyman and Phil Palmisano. Some immigrants are already leaving the U.S. in deportation, I should say, as Trump's threat looms. Oh, and how about this? Greenland's prime minister says Arctic Island doesn't want to be part of the U.S., but always be a strong partner. Jim Acosta claims that journalists are not the enemy of the people ahead of the Trump's return to office. All right, stay with us. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano joining us in just a moment. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Is it time for your next oil change? Are you too busy to do it yourself? Let the professionals at Quick Lube do it for you. With 2 locations better to serve you, Quick Lube makes it easy. Get your oil and filter changed and never leave the comfort of your vehicle. No appointment is needed. Just drive up and let Quick Lube do the rest. Keep your motor humming with Quick Lube on South Main Street in Elmira and Chemung Street in Horsehead.
It's a new year. And for millions of New Yorkers, that means more money in your pocket.
For the second year in a row, the minimum wage in New York State has gone up. Both this year and next, the minimum wage is increasing 50 cents per hour. That means an additional $2,000 to spend on all the things you and your family need. Then, in 2027, the minimum wage will be tied to inflation, which means increases will match costs. New York's new minimum wage, putting money directly into the pockets of New Yorkers who need it most.
I'm Marianne Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America. And that
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And joining us in the studio, I got to get the right button here going. I get so flustered when we have celebrities like Assemblyman Phil Palmisano coming in to the program, but we'll find it. As I search for it, there we go. That'll work for now. Hey, by the way, congratulations. Thanks for being on the show. Congratulations, reappointment as minority leader. We made the announcement on the program.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very humbled. I have a great relationship with our leader, Will Barkley. He's done a fantastic job for our conference with messaging and getting good candidates and winning seats. So, to be part of that leadership team, he appointed me assistant minority leader back in 2020 when he was elected minority leader. So I've been proud to be part of that leadership team and working to put together, common sense policies that address the issues that are facing the public: affordability, public safety, quality of life, rational, common sense energy plans that promote affordable and reliable energy and not unsustainable and not unfeasible radical climate agenda, things of that nature.
And we're going to talk a lot about that because you're also, again, energy ranker, which we were talking out there. Since 2013, that sounds impossible.
Yeah, I was. I always wanted to be on the energy committee. One of my first 2 years, Leader Cole at the time appointed me to the energy committee, and I wanted to be on. That was my priority issue because it touches everything and it really impacts all that we do. I mean, at the time when we were talking about obviously the shale and natural gas infrastructure and where we were, what that would have done for our economy and for jobs here, and then the ranker left to go to the Senate after that. So I asked, and he appointed me the ranker in energy, and I've been there ever since. And I think it's been helpful. I mean, I've acquired a lot of knowledge and expertise. I wouldn't say expertise, but I have a good background on it just from my years of experience. And again, it impacts everybody, and especially with this radical climate energy agenda that's being advanced, and I continue to speak out against it. Continue to speak out for common sense and affordable and reliable energy, not just green energy without any concerns about costs.
And we're going to talk a lot about that because energy is a passion for you and you've been so outspoken on it. But did you think when you first got the job you'd be talking about like the EV mandates and things like that?
Lord.
It continues to get worse and worse, more radical ideas like specifically the Climate Super Fund that she did sign into law. So that's a done deal.
Yeah, she signed it, and I don't understand why. I mean, we talked about that, leading up to the end of the year. Yeah. She got the bill at the end of the session. She signed it, and she knew this is problematic for a host of issues. First of all, there are legal and constitutional challenges, and I'm not a constitutional lawyer or anything like that, but ex post facto, takings clause, commerce clause. There's a whole host of legal issues with this, so it's definitely going to be challenged in the court. It's been challenged in other areas that, I think of Vermont. So there will be challenges to this, but
so a waste of taxpayers' money again.
It is, but on top of it, what message does this send to the business community? These are businesses that have been operating under the rules, regulations, and laws of the state of New York since forever. But they're going to go back to 2000 and say, we're going to assess you a fine, penalty, or tax to pay for the damage you've done to the climate. But the services they have provided us, gasoline, home heating, we've all benefited from that. So how can we say they have to pay for this? And
they followed all the rules. This is what's so frustrating, because especially in a business like that, it's not easy with the permits you need and going to the DEC and getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted to do all of that, and then 10 years later say you're fined. Imagine what other businesses that may start thinking, well, what if an issue regarding my business becomes the cause of the day?
Right.
Can I be fined? It just is another example of, it's not just about lost businesess, but businesses that aren't ever going to consider coming to New York.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, that's what I said. What kind of message does it send when I brought that up in a hearing on another issue last month, and the person said, former PSC commissioner, when we talked about, when he talked about how there's future ratepayer increases of $43 billion that were approved by the PSC, I'm like, no one's paying attention. And he says, who's paying attention to it, Assemblyman? The business community, the site selectors, when they see this. And we're talking about this climate super fund is $3 billion a year, $75 billion over 25 years. I mean, even the speaker himself, a week before he brought it to the floor, said this, in fact, will basically be passed on to the ratepayer and the consumer. So I don't know what they're thinking, but how, the dangerous message this sends to the private sector, the people that create jobs, the people that we want to invest here, stay here, and come here. And it's not a positive message. And then you throw on top of other policies with these green mandates and the cap and invest, which we can talk about in a little bit later. Yeah. That's up for discussion, which is another $15 billion in costs and things of that nature they're talking about. So this energy policy, the EV school bus mandate needs a pause. I mean, there's all this, the whole thing needs a pause because it's not feasible. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm spinning so much to the energy policy. That's what I do when I get frustrated. But I guess the thing is, it's really this whole energy agenda, climate agenda that's being advanced is totally designed to dismantle the affordable and reliable natural gas infrastructure, supply and delivery system. It's designed to take away consumer choice on how you heat your home, cook your food, power your buildings, and the vehicle you drive. It will lead to dangerous blackouts. We saw what happened out in Buffalo with the storms last year. Right. If you imagine if they were totally based on electrification.
Right. Looking next week, we're supposed to get very low temperature-wise. Right. Heaven forbid blackout, because our grid can't handle what they're putting through. Right. And you have no heat in your house?
Yes, exactly right. And this is also going to continue to lead our nation leading out migration crisis that we're facing. And businesses, if you talk to businesses and family, when you talk about energy, they care about two things: affordability and reliability. And if businesses can't get affordable and reliable energy in New York, they're going to go elsewhere, and they are already. Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. And that's why I want to talk about the state of the state.
Sure.
Do you get nervous when it's time for state of the state because you never know what she's going to put forward?
Well,
you kind of expect it at this point.
She talked for weeks leading into it. She said, what the major issues are. Affordability, public safety.
Welcome to the club.
Yes, but unfortunately, it's been, and I was talking to one person who said, "Isn't this really a reaction?" It is, because it's their policies that they've been advancing that put the affordability, the public safety, and quality of life here. So that's why I said, she had I think it was a 45-minute presentation. The address was supposed to start at 1. Okay. It started at 1:46. I'm like, they had singers, dancers. They had the New York Liberty. I mean, it's just, it was unbelievable to me. But I mean, actually, that was better than the speech, though.
Yeah. But it was entertaining.
So, and with the state of the state, I mean, it kind of really there's two parts to this whole agenda. She lays out the state of the state. It's like kind of like the 30,000-foot view of what her main goals and things. And she talked about some things I can get behind. She talked about a middle class tax cut. She talked about child tax credits, to help working families. I agree with that, but the big things are going to come when she talks about. But she talked about this inflation rebate check. That's a gimmick.
So obviously she's worried about 2026.
She is absolutely.
I mean, I think the whole speech was really a campaign speech in a way. But $500 rebate. Listen, I'll take the money. Yeah. $300, whatever it's going to be. But people are commenting on the show. It's almost a slap in the face when you think of the costs that have increased under this administration. Listen, again, I'll take it. But what is that for a family? One more week's of groceries, so a free week of groceries, maybe.
Well, yeah, and people are still suffering from that when they go to the grocery store, paying for gasoline at the pump, all those things. So it's problematic. So. What we will see next week is what her budget is, and
that's a more kind of important.
Yeah, that's where it is. I mean, but really, that whole show can't distract from basically what we're facing here, which is an affordability, a public safety, and quality of life crisis. We can't, as we look at this budget, we can't continue down this dangerous path of unsustainable and out of control spending and debt, crippling job-killing taxes, crippling inflation, rising energy prices and utility costs because of this dangerous and radical energy agenda that's being advanced, and the continuation of violent crime in our neighborhoods.
Right.
All these things have led to our nation leading out migration crisis. So as she presents her budget, just to give the listeners, the viewers an idea, when I started in the Assembly in 2011, our first budget was $133 billion. The budget we passed last year was about $240 billion. That budget has, under one-party control since 2019, has increased $66 billion, or 38%. I mean, I think far too often my colleagues in Albany thinks it's their money, and they fail to recognize that it's the people's money, and it's time to tighten the belts. We don't have because there's already talks about raising taxes. The governor said she's not. She's talking about lowering taxes, thank goodness. But the speaker, they've made an indication, raising taxes is on the table. The progressives, the liberals want to do that because they don't think we have enough money to spend. We don't have a revenue problem in the state of New York. We have a spending problem. Exactly. And that's why and the thing I don't understand, they don't recognize, I mean, listen, to the families watching at home, to the small businesses, the manufacturers, they have to make tough decisions every day on what they do with their household budget, what they do with their business budgets. They can't just spend wildly. They know they have to balance it and be wise and frugal with their dollars. The state of New York needs to do the same thing because it's not their money. It's the people's money. That's the thing that I get very, very frustrated about when we see these policies. So we're looking at a budget presentation next week, and we'll see what the priorities are going to be and how she wants to spend that money, and how much money is going to be there for the migrant crisis, how much is going to be for roads and bridges. I mean, there's the MTA. There's a lot of talk about the MTA. We did a press conference with Mike Lawler, who's
I saw that
this week. He brought up a statistic which I really wasn't aware of, and he brought it. The debt of the MTA is higher than 48 other states. Wow. That's the MTA that services New York. Their debt is higher than 48 other states. That's staggering. So they're going to be looking for more money. She just implemented this congested pricing plan. Interestingly, she paused it before the election.
During the election season,
and then as soon as the election is over, she brings it right back. Because
what a mess that is.
It is a mess, and it's impacting everyone. I mean, they're saying $9 to cross over, and it's not doing the congestion. It's just moving the congestion around. But you have farmers that are bringing produce down to the city. They're getting hit. You got small businesses, all those veterans, all these people that are going down there, they're getting hit with this, and then it's going to rise up to $15 a person. I mean, it's just, they don't have a revenue problem down there. They have a spending problem. It's mismanaged. The MTA is so mismanaged. And listen, I support the MTA projects. We have Alstom and Hornell. We have CAF. We're going to have Siemens now doing cars too. All of those types of things are helpful, and we need to make sure there's a balance. But it can't all be the MTA, and that's why I always bring up the parity in the budget about our, Tom, Chris, and I, and all of us always talk about local infrastructure money for our local roads, bridges, and culverts. There needs to be some parity with the funding for the MTA budgets compared to the DOT capital plans. So that's some of the things I'm sure I'm looking to see what she does on that side of the things. I'm looking to see, how much more money we're going to spend on the migrant crisis. We've spent $4.3 billion in state dollars over the past couple of years. That's more than we spend on our veterans, our seniors, and our homeless combined. That's misplaced priority. That's misspending, and it's not.
It's very reminiscent of, if you look at California, what's going on there. Obviously, the devastating wildfires, and you look at again, kind of like we do here, virtue signal. They put the money from the fire department to the homeless population.
Exactly.
And that we're dealing with the same type of thing here. Now, obviously, we're not like California in that sense, but doesn't it seem this was a prime example of how California comes out with a bad idea and we just jump on it?
Oh, it's one thing after another.
Really
I mean, they have this trucking regulation, they call it CARB. It's a regulation. It's called ACT, and it's very, very concerning that basically they say it's after manufacturers, but the manufacturers are passing it on to the dealers. So when like the city of Corning or the county of Steuben goes to purchase equipment, trucks like snowplows, they're basically putting this mandate in place saying for every 6 ICE vehicles, combustion gas diesel engines, you have to purchase an electric vehicle or sell electric vehicles. So there is what it's going to do. It will limit the amount of vehicles. It was already starting to affect. So they put a pause on the snowplows. But where's the common sense of this? They've done this on California. Sales are down like 90%. I mean, and the infrastructure is not in place. We're having a hearing in Albany next week on charging infrastructure. So these towns, these cities, these villages, where how are they supposed to put this charging infrastructure in place without burdening their taxpayers? And there's no charging infrastructure along the highways. What about the trucking industry? They have to bring product from one place to the other. Where are they supposed to charge this? Everyone's supposed to get off 86 and come into town to charge their vehicle at a place where's this infrastructure going to be? And that's the problem with this energy plan. Nothing was thought out. This is not a feasible plan. The massive build out of the grid that's required. Let's pause. Let's pump the brakes on the electric school bus making. Let's not just pump, let's slam the brakes. Let's take a pause. Even the CLCPA, which we adopted in 2009, allows for pause for reliability, and it should be for cost too. You don't tear down. Natural gas is 60% of the people heat their homes with natural gas. 40% of our generation comes from natural gas. That's talked about as a bridge fuel. They always talk about it as a bridge fuel. You don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one, and that's exactly what they're doing with the reliable and affordable energy infrastructure we have in place, and that's what my concerns are.
We're going to take a short break, then it's Fridays with Phil. Someone with Phil Palmisano as our guest. Stay with us.
Are you or someone you love at risk of falling in the home? Did you know 80% of home falls happen in the bathroom? If you are still stepping over a tub to take a shower, please call Bath Planet for a free design service. Our certified design team will take all the measurements and work with you to design a bathroom that never has to sacrifice style for safety. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
Lease a brand new 2025 Chevy Silverado 1500 LT Crew Cab 4x4 with GM Lease Loyalty or Conquest Bonus for only $449 a month for 36 months. Make car buying simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Chevrolet in Bath.
Your tap water is delicious. I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system. What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Todd's in the hospital.
From vaping. 你笑我vape嗎?
Not cool.
Wacky sitcom teens aren't the best people to talk to your kid about vaping.
Hey, you got a minute?
You are. Talk to your child about vaping today.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Joining me in that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, we got a couple questions from viewers. First is a comment from Ken. Ken writes, I know that Phil is saying about the New York Democrats spending taxpayer dollars, but think a better way of thinking of it is the New York Dems don't think about it as their money, which they would be more frugal with. They spend it more freely because it isn't their money, and they obviously don't care to be frugal with the taxpayers' money. Kind of true.
It is true.
A comment from a different viewer. Could I opt to forego my inflation rebate check and instead get the same payment that illegal newcomers got for the year?
Yeah, right.
Would they let you do that?
I don't think they will.
Now, do you want to talk about the migrant crisis? Because obviously we have spent a lot of money here. We talked about it a little bit in the previous segment. I think it does tie in, which we'll talk about in a moment, public safety as well. But what do you see with the migrant crisis? What are the updates?
Well, I mentioned, I think, in the last segment how much we've spent so far.
Yeah.
I mean, next week we're going to see how much more she's planning to allocate for this. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be probably more billions of dollars in this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious to see where that is and where the priorities are going to be. The New York City spending the money. But the problem is, and it's certainly with the new administration coming in and what they've said about this, I mean, they've we have the green light law that allows illegal immigrants to get driver's licenses. When that came up, we talked about, fraud associated with that, voter fraud. So they're going to be looking at all of this. I mean, but the biggest thing we should all be able to agree on, our law enforcement should be able to cooperate with federal ICE officials, especially when someone commits a crime. I mean, based on the statistics, there's 58,000 illegal immigrants who have been charged with a crime, have committed a crime. 1,000 of them are tied to gang members and gangs. I mean, that they need to be removed from our state. I mean, because you see it over and over again. I mean, we talked about it during the election. It was like a perfect storm, but it's not perfect. It's a terrible storm, deadly storm of this immigration crisis. First, you have an unchecked border, right? And this is full example. This is unchecked border. So you have a legal immigrant crosses the border from Venezuela, comes to New York because he wasn't checked, wasn't vetted, comes to New York, commits a crime, was released because of our bail reform laws. There was no communication with federal ICE officials because, we're a sanctuary state, basically sanctuary city. That person leaves New York, went down to Atlanta. What do? Killed Lake and Riley.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and did you see Letitia James came out today and is encouraging them not to vote for the Lake and Riley?
How out of touch? I mean, this is just another example. How out of touch some of these people in the Democratic Party, Democratic leadership. I mean, the Attorney General of the state of New York. A young lady was killed by an illegal immigrant, and you're saying don't pass it. We have a similar bill, Lakin's Law, in New York, and basically it would require get rid of that that mandate that they can't cooperate. And Governor Hochul says, she said in some comments that she made, she goes, "I'll be the first one to say someone who commits a crime, they're out of here." She can do that right now. All she has to do is take her pen and get rid of the executive order that's on the books by her predecessor that said you can't have cooperation between local law enforcement and federal ICE officials, and that's problematic. We need to address that issue. The incoming border czars talked about that. He met with Mayor Adams. Let's see what type of
Mayor Adams is going to meet with Trump. I think they said next week.
Well, they should be. Yeah. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, but we can't continue. This is unsustainable. I mean, how much more money can we spend on, people want money spent on their concerns, not concerns. I mean, not only are just the housing, but giving them debit cards, free education, all these things. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me. So, but we should have that cooperation. The sanctuary city, sanctuary state status that we have is not making our communities any safer. You see it from repeat offenders over and over. Like I think I saw a news clip of the guy with the blowtorch who was an illegal immigrant. Yeah. I mean, and you see repeat offenders. I mean, time and time again. I mean, and it's all translated into the crime that's going on into our state. She talked about public safety.
Yeah, we want to talk about that extensively because Richie Torres, who is going to run again, probably primary here. I mean, he had a great op-ed. I don't believe he'll actually stand by this if he was governor, but a very tough-talking public safety op-ed in the New York Post. And I thought, well, at least he saw how successful Lee Zeldin was. And he says, I want to be the public safety candidate, right? And so do you think that's why all of a sudden and it's complete talk, but talking tough on public safety? Because I think it's like the last go-around with the bail reform that was literally nothing.
It was. She talks tough. Yeah. And I said this I was talking to someone, I think it was a reporter in Albany. I go, they walk the walk, but they don't talk the talk. They have the soundbite. The governor's been talking about the affordability crisis law for 3 weeks leading into this. She's talking about public safety. But yet at the same time, we have someone burned to death on the subway, and then she's doing selfies, a few days later. And
that next day, I think it was that day.
Yeah. I mean, how out of touch? I mean, these are their policies that they're implementing. There's no repercussions for crime. I mean, I think one of the statistics I saw that I think I shared with you before was assaults have seen, I think, a 146.5% spike in felony assaults by repeat offenders. Last year, I guess there was people with 3 arrests or more had 442 assaults last year. That's up from 274 in 2018. That's because of our bail reform, catch and release, that was implemented in 2019 under one-party control. I mean, the police is saying their hands are tied with some of this stuff, and 146% increase. Like, people aren't safe. So, and she can keep tinkering around the edges about talking about what the changes she made. But at the end of the day, with the bail reform, they didn't make the change they need because we are still the only state in the nation that does not allow a judge the judicial discretion to detain someone based on their violence and based on what they might do, the dangerousness of an individual. And she was even in her speech the other day, she's saying, the judges need to implement this. They can't.
They can't.
They can't because she's hand-tied them. We're putting the handcuff on our judges. We're putting the handcuff on our law enforcement. We're putting the handcuff on our DAs instead of the violent criminals and dangerous criminals that are out there in our community and repeat violent offenders. Let's take the handcuffs off our law enforcement and our judges, and let's put them on the people that we really need to put them on. That's what I'm concerned about, and that's the policy. People don't feel safe in New York, and they aren't safe in New York.
No.
And the people are leaving the state. That's one of the things I've said over and over, and it's contributing to this nation leading out migration. It's the crime, it's the quality of life, it's the affordability, it's the public safety. You know, more and more policies that are coming. People are voting with their feet. They're going to continue to leave the state. We said, I think over 500,000 people have left in the past 2 years, 600,000 over since 2020. It's growing, and so we're going to continue to lose congressional representation. We're going to continue to lose more families, farmers, small businesses, and manufacturers with the policies that we continue to implement.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like she cares more about appeasing the far left in Albany than she does about the public safety of the residents of New York State.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and I said this over and over, whether it's the energy policy or others, the governor needs to stand up. If she won't, because she doesn't have the backbone or the will to stand up to the radical activists, whether it's energy activists, climate activists, or whether it's the criminal justice advocates and the progressives, socialists in the legislature that are driving this agenda. If you're for the taxpayer, if you're for public safety, stand up for the public citizens. I mean, it's almost like criminals have more rights, or the scales of justice tipped in favor of the criminals versus crime victims and their families, law enforcement, and public safety. And that's wrong. Those are misplaced priorities, and we need to be addressed. And, you know, people are trying to send a message, and 2026 is another chance to do that. But it's concerning to me because we want people to be safe. This is a great community. It can be a great state. But if they don't feel safe, if they aren't safe, if they're being penalized for different things, and more costs being burdened on them, not looking at helping to ease that burden, that's challenging. That doesn't help improve the quality of life. So it's an affordability, public safety, and quality of life crisis. I've said that over and over again. That's what we need to be addressing for the public.
Someone commented, bail reform needs to go. Does Phil agree? I think you answered that. I think you answered
that
question.
Legislation that to repeal it.
Yeah.
She talked about discovery laws. I mean, that's something we need to address. We'll see how that comes, because that's made it problematic for DAs. They've had to dismiss cases. They've had cases thrown out. So there's things like that. We have to fix this stuff. But my colleagues that progress in the legislature really don't seem to have an appetite for any of this. It's like they rather keep giving these people a break. I mean, that's why you see anytime there's crimes, you know, anything to increase penalties, the speaker and others will say, well, we don't need to increase penalties. We need to work within what we have. No, we need to increase penalties.
Exactly. Comment from a viewer, is the office of governor a dictatorship with the final say in all matters? Can't she be made to allow fracking in New York? Just to answer that, this is what happens when it's one party rule. So it's not dictatorship, but it's whatever the far left wants.
And that's what, I mean, they passed legislation. I mean, first you had the ban, the moratorium, and then ultimately they ended up passing legislation to ban it. I mean, obviously we were opposed to it, and then they had the company down the road in Tago that was looking to do fracking through the CO2. They went and passed a ban on that before they even let the science, they even let the environmental, the DEC look at it and see if it can be done safely and responsibly. It's just this radical agenda, radical reaction, and we've been hurt by it.
We have. But I do want to talk a little bit more about crime maybe later on. We got a couple other issues we'll bring up as well. So stay with us. We got to take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
At Simmons Rockwell Ford, lease a brand new 2024 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend 4x4 for only $389 a month for 36 months. Make car buying simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Ford in Hornell and Bath.
There's been another deadly shooting at a local elementary school. According to authorities, the suspect acquired the gun from a family member's home before using it to take the lives of innocent children and teachers.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Joining me in that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, have you butted heads yet with your colleague, Joe Sempolinski?
I have. I have to tell you, it's really good to see Joe up there.
Isn't it great?
I mean, he's going to do such a fantastic job for her. He's going to be a great part of the team. He's already, out there doing things. Obviously he was our congressman.
Yes.
And I have to say, I've said this at things, at different functions. I don't know if I ever said it publicly, but to the viewers, we really owe Joe Sempolinski a big debt of gratitude. Mm-hmm. He stepped in when we had a vacancy for Congress, and it was in the middle of an election year too. Mm-hmm. And some people didn't want to just run for a 4-month term.
Right.
And we knew we had a primary that was going on for the seat. Joe said, listen, I'm not going to run for this seat, but we need representation in Washington to make sure the people's voice of this district is heard. He went down there and spent 4 months down there. He got delivered results right away.
He worked hard.
He worked very, very hard.
You would think most people would say, okay, I got the title. It's kind of neat. I'll just, have a little fun in Washington, go sightseeing. He hit the ground running. He did a press call. Obviously, full disclosure, I worked for him. He did a press call on the last day he was in office. And that's Joe. That's Joe.
That's Joe, and he's going to do the same thing in Albany. He's going to be a great part of the team. He's a good friend. I've known him. But we really do owe him a debt of gratitude for taking that on. He went there and delivered. And then he went back to work for Joe Giglio as his chief of staff. And then when Joe decided not to run, he stepped in and is going to be there. He's going to do a fantastic job. I look forward to working with him and seeing him around. But I need to say that publicly. I've said it at different political events running around, but I want the public to know. If you see Joe Sempolinski, regardless if you agree with politics with him, say thank you for taking that time and going there for 4 months when most people probably wouldn't. He went there to make sure we had a voice in Washington. We sure did during that time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to following his career. So it's nice to see we played his swearing in. Will Barclay sent me the audio. His team did the audio from his swearing in, and he did a good job.
And the other thing is when he introduced, we did the formal introductions this week, and I think it's the first member of Congress elected to the Assembly since around 1918 or something like that.
He knows. I know Joe knows it because he's mentioned it before.
Yes,
he probably knows the guy's name and where he lived. But Joe, just a shameless plug, he's going to be on the program next Thursday. So we'll be talking with Joe and see how he likes it in Albany.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, so many issues, but about the public safety. We have the sheriff on so often and we talk about it with people. I think the saddest thing for me is, obviously we're tying the hands of the police and coddling the criminals, but I always point to the fact that there are so many victims in New York State that should not have been victims.
Exactly.
It's so overlooked that, whether it's repeat, how many articles, I know you go to Empire Report, so many people here go to Empire Report, where it'll be someone, out on bail for the 30th time commits another crime.
Right. Well, you saw that one statistic that we just talked about. This was an article that was just came out. The 146.5% increase in assaults. And since 2018, in 2019 when the bail reform took place, and that increase is based on people who were arrested previously 3 times.
Yeah.
But so it's a catch and release. Our law enforcement, their hands are tied. They go, what are we doing? We arrest these people and they're back on the street the next day, sometimes the next afternoon. So what are we doing? And they know, these criminals know there's no repercussions. They know they're going to be out. I've seen stories where people went into the courtroom and say, hey, I'll be out there and smiling, walking out on the way out the door. Mm-hmm. It's wrong. Same thing with these individuals down the city committing crimes. The illegal immigrants. It's one thing after another. People don't feel safe and they aren't safe. And that's the quality of life crisis that we're having. And so we need to empower our law enforcement. We need to respect our law enforcement. A lot of people don't. A lot of people, they defund the police movement.
Right.
They would rather have social workers on the street than law enforcement on the street. So,
but what's frustrating, they know the New York State residents want something done. That's why they make these platitudes. Even Richie Torres, who was a part of supporting defund the police, now has an op-ed that looks like he's running on in Trump's administration. He's talking so tough, but they realize that this is what people want, but they just won't do anything.
Well, yeah, you're right. And listen, the presidential race, even in New York, was a telling sign.
Yeah.
President Trump, his numbers increased significantly in the cities, Queens, Bronx.
Look at those rallies he held too.
People showed up, and while the Democrat, like Kamala Harris, numbers went down. So there's a gap there that needs to be addressed, and that's a wake up call to them. And 2026 is not too far away, and I think Governor Hochul is panicking, and I think that's why you see her pausing on some of these things, like we were talking about the cap and invest, which I thought was going to come out the week before. They were talking about it. There was an article in the Post talking about how this is going to increase prices at the pump. I mean, the 5-year climate, if that was implemented, the escalator, it'd be like Basil Sakos when he was implemented said it was going to increase prices at the pump for New York 63 cents a gallon, increase home heating costs for natural gas 79%. Those are real numbers. That's not an affordable. So the cap and invest runs totally contradictory to the affordability rhetoric that's been coming out of the governor's mouth the past 3 weeks. So maybe she got it. Maybe she understood it. She wanted to pause on it, and that's good because they were supposed to try to implement this thing right away to meet that climate mandate and that climate agenda. And so maybe she'll start to really take some significant action. I'm hoping. She's certainly walking the walk, but we'll see what happens with the talk. But I was encouraged on the cap and invest. We'll see what happens, because the other thing about that bothers me, I just want to say to the viewers, cap and invest is basically a plan that they're talking about $15 billion in spending. And this is on top of the climate super fund, which was $75 billion over retroactively, and then this is going forward, which would be implemented on when you pay prices at the pump. It's basically a program, but there's no accountability. They're going to allow the DEC and NYSERDA to implement all of this without an up or down vote. I have legislation that says, listen, whatever they want to come up with, let's take an up or down vote on it. I mean, in this cap and invest, I mean, the question I asked Doreen Harris, I had a meeting with her and others, what's an acceptable increase in the prices at the pump for New Yorkers? What's an acceptable increase in natural gas home heating costs for New Yorkers by this governor, by the Carl Hastie, by the Majority Leader Stuart Cousins, by the Democrats in Albany? What's an acceptable increase for you to implement this plan? Say it, because if you believe in it, say it. And if you really believe in it, let's be transparent and accountable with the voters. Let's take an up or down and vote on it, stand by it. But because if the legislature had to take up or down vote on increasing gas prices 25 cents, they wouldn't do it. They would vote no. But they know they're going to do this through the regulatory process and say, well, then they can point the blame there and here and there.
Isn't it interesting? And I know you've been at this for a while, and it's the same in Washington. But you have the climate change super fund. That's a scary word to me, super fund.
Yeah.
Then you have something called cap and invest. Explain the invest part to me.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that scares me. Listen, I guess the simplest way to put it, anytime you at home hear the government use the word invest, that should be a immediate red flag to say that they're coming to take more money out of your pocket.
100%.
And that's what it would be, and that's what it ultimately would do, is because it would cap emissions, and there's trading and auction policy. It's technical, and then they're going to supposedly invest it in climate solutions, but it's more money coming out of your pocket to pay for it, and it's not going to solve global emissions, because at the end of the day, New York only contributes 0.4% of total global emissions, 0.4%. And these policies are only affecting New York, doesn't affect Pennsylvania or Ohio, certainly doesn't affect China, India, Russia. And when we're only 0.4% and China's 30%, has 1,000 coal plants and building more, what are we talking about? It doesn't matter what we do. It's not going to make difference. But what we will do is drive more families, farmers, small businesses, and manufacturers out of the state, again, contributing to our nation-leading out-migration crisis. Businesses, again, care about affordable, reliable energy. If they can't get it here, they're going to go elsewhere. They'll go to Pennsylvania, they'll go to Ohio, they'll go to Tennessee, they'll go to North Carolina, they'll go to Florida, they'll go to Texas. They're leaving here for those places now already.
Yeah, and a viewer asks how many people and businesses are leaving the state due to Hochul and the Democrat policies. I don't know if that's rhetorical or not, but we can't even put a number on it, because as we said at the beginning, it's also about the businesses that won't come here.
because of the signaling, and I'll go back to the former PSC commissioner when we had a hearing last month on the green spending, the energy, and I said, where was it when the PSC? Where was the outrage? Who paid attention when the PSC in July of 23 approved $43 billion in future rate pay increases?
Right.
Who noticed that? He goes, who noticed it, Assemblyman? The site selectors, the business site selectors, the corporate committee. They see that, so they know if they come to New York, they're facing that. They know that they're facing this retroactive tax assessment. Geez, well, if I come to New York and follow the rules and regs for 20 years, now they're going to be able to come back on me.
And you
because
might
they're
not
set this
even
precedent.
know what the issue was going to be.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the thing. I mean, they did everything this state asked them to do.
Exactly.
Jump through all that hoop, red tape.
And we're empowering the same agency that approved these permits, like the
Exactly.
DC, to come back and now assess them. Are you kidding me? The governor knows this is going to be a legal problem. She signed it. You know why? Because she's afraid. She doesn't have the backbone to stand up or the will to stand up to these extreme climate activists and the progressives and socialists in the legislature. She doesn't have the backbone and will to do it. And I said to some people, if she cares about these people, show it, put this stuff in her budget, change the emissions and things like that in the budget, and show that she's on their side. But she won't, because she can't stand up to them. So that's why I was really totally surprised that she punted on the cap and vest. But I think that was a survival mode, because she knows if this comes out and she's running in 2026, if your prices at the pump are going up 22%, because in the first couple of years they're going to see that, she's punting. She's going to delay this, delay it until she wants to try to get through 2026, just like she did with the congestion prices. She delayed it for the congressional reps.
We'll be right back. We gotta take a short break. We got a lot more to talk about. Stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now 844-617-0440.
At Simmons Rockwell Ford, lease a brand new 2024 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend 4x4 for only $389 a month for 36 months. Make Carbine simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Ford in Hornell and Bath.
There's been another deadly shooting at a local elementary school. According to authorities, the suspect acquired the gun from a family member's home before using it to take the lives of innocent children and teachers.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Let's go through some quick comments, if you don't mind, Phil. Look how ugly the valley is with wind turbines. They use how much oil? Yes, they do use a lot of oil. Thank you for that. Good for DeSantis for evacuating illegals, but how many are coming to New York State? Sanctuary states, we need to end this madness sooner than later. Thank you. Natural gas is natural. Why go? Electricity has to be generated that pollutes. It's more expensive. So who is pushing the big electricity thing? Just a
there's groups, and the thing on the electricity prices is for people. We talked about costs. I was doing some research. We talk about natural gas and home heating. Electricity prices, price per kilowatt hour for residential is 40 or 29% higher than the national average. Price of electricity per kilowatt hour for commercial is 44% higher than the national average. So you have that already, then you're going to implement these policies. I mean, people see what's going on with utility bills. You got the rate increases that NYSEG and RG and others are doing. Mm-hmm. And of course the governor and others come out and yell about that, and I understand it because it was ridiculous increases, but they're doing it because they have to pay for these mandates, and that's policies. The thing. So these things, so costs are going up.
Passing
for
along
this green energy. It's not green. We talk about the the child labor and poisoning of water rivers and streams by lithium mining and the cobalt mining with kids dying. We mine it for the cobalt, the power that is used to produce the battery to power the electric vehicles, but they don't want to talk about that either.
No. Another comment from a different viewer. Sadly, New York City, Buffalo, Albany, and Syracuse are Democratic, so the state will continue to suffer. To that person's point, and I don't want to sound jaded, Phil, but, we talk about the gubernatorial race and we talk about, Trump made great inroads, so don't get me wrong. But the fact that 2 to 3 polls now show that Cuomo could win mayor in New York City shows us where we're at with New York City, right?
It does. It's pretty scary. I mean, and Cuomo still has money left in his campaign account.
Yep. He
can raise money, and he's getting all his legal bills that he's paid for by the taxpayers.
$28 million, I think they said. 29 million that we paid for.
Yeah, because he has that production. It's just ridiculous.
Yep.
And he also had that book deal. They didn't take the book deal. I mean, so he made $5 million off the deaths of individuals in nursing homes because they were negotiating that book deal.
That should discredit him from every single, forever running for office.
And all the other stuff that he did. I mean, it's crazy. He should not be there, but if he is, God help us.
Yes. Another comment from a viewer. We are very fortunate to have Assemblyman Palmisano and Sempolinski, as well as Senator Tom O'Mara, representing us in our area. They are strong advocates for those they represent, as well as local governments. That's nice.
Thank you. Yes, I'd also like to throw in there someone, Chris Friend's a great advocate. He's a good friend, and we work closely together. And our new representative, Andrea Bailey, is going to do a fantastic job. She's taken over on the northwestern part of the Steuben County and Livingston County. She was a former Livingston County clerk. She's going to be a great addition to our conference too, and it's going to be a great team.
Who did she replace?
She replaced Marjorie Burns.
That's what I meant. Boy, she's been there. That's going to feel weird not having her.
Yeah, Marge is great. Marge is fantastic. Joe was fantastic, but there's change happens, and getting Joe Sempolinski and Andrea Bailey in there is going to be a great addition to the team. We're already talking. We talked prior to this, and we're going to work together on behalf of Steuben County and the entire region.
Here's a comment from a viewer. I blame Cuomo for 2 deaths in my family. How can this criminal win in New York City ever again in any position? Yeah, sorry to hear about your loss, but I agree. There's a lot of people that feel the same way. All right, here's something completely off topic. Phil, this question came in earlier. I apologize I didn't get to it earlier. Wondering your thoughts on the placement of the Narcon vending machines. And I'll give people a little background. There's a Narcon vending machine, looks like a typical vending machine where you get snacks at lunch in Addison. Curious your thoughts on it. What this person says is that obviously nobody wants our young people to die, but I, for one, really have a problem with safe shoot-up sites and the vending machines.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I haven't heard a lot about this, but
it's very new.
I understand. Listen, I think what it signifies is a couple of problems. One, we know that you see the overdoses that are going on in our communities. The rising deaths. I mean, you see whether it's from the opioids, and you don't know what's going on with the fentanyl, how that's coming over the border, and how that might influence some of these things. People overdose. So Narcan is known to try to help alleviate that if you're in a situation. So this plan, I mean, I'm not familiar why the plan started, but my guess, if I was having to guess, we're in a very rural area. And, emergency access to this is very difficult for emergency responders to get to some of these communities. It could take 20 minutes, half an hour, and that could be too late. Maybe that's one of the reasons for doing it. But it doesn't distract from the situation of the bigger underlying problem. This opioid, this drug abuse is going on. And I don't think the thing I think that makes me nervous with all the promotion of Narcan, I get it. It's a great tool for our first responders people to deal with it. My fear is that it's almost like a normalization of the crisis. They'd say, hey, listen, I'm not going to die. I can get this. Or that's my concern. Terrifying. I think it's a bigger problem than just having a vending machine. I think it's probably, and it's more of like a Band-Aid tool, like a major artery cut. I don't know, I'm trying to give an analysis.
No, that works.
But I think maybe that they're looking at trying to get and trying things, especially in rural areas where that response time is going to be very limited. So. And I think,
and to make it clear, this isn't a safe shoot-up site. So I know they can, and I know you've been speaking out against safe shoot-up sites.
Yeah, that heroin injection sites that they talked about doing. It's just ridiculous. I mean, that just validates it. I mean, what's that? That these people need treatment. We need to get treatment and invest in treatment, just like we need to invest in mental health services and things of that nature. So. It's problematic, but I'm hearing about it a little bit about it. But so I haven't. No one consulted with me when they were doing with it.
Right.
But I think it does signify a bigger problem,
Because we don't want to normalize. I hate that word. Everybody uses that word, but normalize the addiction. And as this person said, maybe there's, and I'm paraphrasing, using taxpayer money in different ways to end the epidemic or the pandemic.
We need more hands. This is all hands on deck. We're not going to arrest our way out of the drug problem. I mean, the drug dealers, we need to be going after these people. We need to go after them very viciously. And not let them be released from jail. But we need treatment. We need to provide services and things of that nature. When we talk about $240 billion plus budget, it's about priorities.
Yes.
Is our priorities going to go to help people who are hurting in our communities, or are our priorities going to go help provide more for illegal migrants that are crossing the border illegally and committing crime? Where are our priorities? There's enough money in the pot. It's how we disperse that money. So.
Yep. We got to take one last short break, wrapping up. So get your last minute questions in for Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on Phil on Fridays. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped. I had a gun and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. As we're getting ready to wrap up, Phil, we haven't talked about it. I had Mayor Bolin on the program before Christmas for the Salvation Army Telethon. And he said, and I pushed back on this, he said that when you guys ring the bell, the Democrat versus Republican challenge, the Republicans always get the best weather. I owe him an apology because you guys you had like summer weather this year.
Yeah, we did have better weather. I mean, no, we had nothing to do with it. If I could have controlled that, I wouldn't be in this job. I'd be doing something much different if I could control the weather. But listen, I remember being out there one day when it was raining. I remember being out there when I had so much snow on top of the head. I almost looked like a unicorn because it just built right up. Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, this was a fun, friendly challenge. You know, I want to thank our friends, our Democratic friends from the city, just like our Republican friends. Mm-hmm. Everyone who came by and put some money in the jar, it was very helpful. Yeah. It was a big success, in my opinion.
And I haven't made this announcement, but the Salvation Army hit its goal this year.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Because we came really short last year, and we put on a big push. You guys put on a big push, so we're really excited.
I also like to say thank you to the media. The media came out and covered it. Yeah. And it wasn't just about covering the event. It was a reminder to the public to donate, during this time. There's need, because this is a great organization that does so much good right here to help families in our own community. So with the media's help, coming out and covering the story, and also putting in their stories about another ways you can link in to donate. So it's a partnership. It's the Republican, Democrats, and the media coming together. You don't normally see that. So I think that's kind of a win-win for everybody.
It's unique. I think that's why I get so much coverage.
This was our 16th year of doing it. So I'm really encouraged by that, and how we make it a fun, friendly challenge. And to my friend Bill Bowen, if we had nothing to do with the weather, it, pal.
And I can't ask. I know people are saying, who won? That's never been what this is about.
It isn't. Who won is the community won by coming together to support this cause. Who won is a Salvation won, a great organization that does so much good. Who won are the families who are benefiting from the generous donations of the people in the region.
Phil, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. One last comment to read before we go. Thank you, Phil. That's what someone said. So there you go. Thanks,
you.
Phil. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes.
Maybe real soon, because I want to catch up on the budget.
Sure.
Because that's going to be the real meat and potatoes.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll have to be careful on that day, probably. Stay or join us. Monday morning, start at 6 for Frankly Speaking only on Big Fox. I look forward to it already.
Are you ready for winter in New York State? Ready for thrills like this? Discoveries like this? Views like this? Are you ready to make memories? Plan the perfect trip or have an impromptu getaway. It's time to explore everything that makes New York easy to love. Discover more at iloveny.com.